Another episode of Adventures with the Sasquatch Warrior Chief family. We out here, we underneath beautiful Maple Street Bridge. I'm just giving y'all a glimpse of how it looks down here. The backbone of Spokane. Real Spokane. Natives. People really grew up in the city, grew up in the town. Who's gonna know how to appreciate this sort of thing? Coming out here and just stepping into our real pure elements as Spokane natives, as people who are indigenous to this land and indigenous to this area. It's always a comforting feeling to be able to come back to where it all started, to where your people once resided, to where it was all so easy and so simplistic at a time when we're so distracted throughout this modern day and time and throughout everyday life. We forget to return to where it all once began and where it all once started. I wanted to try to come up here and get some sort of river footage, but that backfired miserably. Let me put the tripod away. Just because, considering where I'm at, I didn't want my equipment falling into the river, because I am kind of live from the bridge pillar. But for my viewers, I don't suggest none of this. Beautiful Monroe Street over there, if you can see it. Monroe Street over there through the tree line, and off in the yonder you can see it. Spokane tribe, stand up, you heard? Taking the time for you to go out there where it's sacred. Go on a hike. Go out here and be amongst the river. Be amongst your elders, your ancestors. As a proud member of the Spokane Tribe of Indians, I come to this area and I sit amongst the riverbank, and I almost can hear my ancestors speaking to me, telling me that I am what I am, and that I am the Sasquatch Warrior Chief. And the things that I say and the things that I do are proudly, proudly looked upon from the spirit world. Because I am one of the ones that still do come down here and say my prayers amongst the river bank. A center of culture. Prior to Western expansion and establishment of reservations, the Spokane tribe of Indians, or Spookane, long accompanied the land you are now standing on. The name Spokane, or Spokane, with a certain urban slang dialect to it, likely stems from the name of the historic leader within the tribe, Chief Unanum Spookane, Spokane, Gary's father. When settlers assumed this headman, they encountered was the leader of the entire tribe. In fact, the Spokane, like the other interior Salish peoples, were a rich cultural tapestry with political hierarchy and cultural practice broken down at the band, village, and family level. The Spokane were boldly divided into three bands: upper, middle, and lower, based on their location along the Spokane River. The indigenous people of the indigenous people of the Peaceful Valley, including Chief Luna Spokane and Spokane Gary, were Upper Spokane, also known as salmon trout people, after the steelhead trout that once thrived in these waters. Spokane, Spokane were a hunter, fisher, gatherer people who maintained several permanent winter villages near this spot. Salmon, steelhead, runs were plentiful here, and rich harvests were made at Spokane Falls and the mouth Hangman Valley Creek. The smell of wood smoke and dried salmon long mixed with the sounds of Spokane Salish tongue in the midst of the river and the falls. The villages at the Spokane Falls were also a center of trade. Salmon were unavailable to surpass the carcasses, and upstream people were therefore unable to reap the rich harvest in their own territories. However, the salmon trout people were happy to share in their rich abundance under the direction of their local salmon chief. So indigenous peoples traveled from far and wide to gather at this location where the salmon were running. Beautiful, beautiful. Chief Spokane Gary himself, a strong had a strong affiliation to this place, and is said to have lived out many of his last days in a lodge near the mouth of Hangman Creek. By this time, his lands had been taken, and he had a few followers were politically and socially marginalized peoples, eked out in existence in small encampments near here, a quiet last stand at what they knew as a powerful center to their people's culture. Spokane Gary died in 1892 after relocating to Indian Canyon not far from here. Spokane tribal members have continued to have a presence in Peaceful Valley, then called Poverty Flats, either by choice to be near the river that defines homeland or circumstance marginalized along with the Eastern European Chinese or other immigrant populations living here in what was then furnished in the new city of Spokane Falls. It's beautiful as you go throughout each day to be a person that remembers who they are and not who they pretend to be. The Spokane people, as Spokane natives, you have a place, you have a purpose here. You do belong. So don't ever feel like you don't have a home. Don't ever feel like you can't come down here and still not hear those drums and those songs. In the spirit world and in other dimensions, I feel as if this right here is still a sacred homeland. The salmon are still plentiful and there's not too much difference. In the spirit world, time does not exist. So I've heard. But as I go throughout each day, I'm always enriched by the thought and by the presence and by the impact of this river and how it's stood so strong and throughout this test of time it's been there for its people. Strong and courageous. That's where I source a lot of my strength from. It's from